not better citizens. We must build prisons on a historic scale, deport foreign national offenders faster than ever, and speed up our courts. Yet still, despite all that, we must reform sentencing too. So, more in hope than expectation, despite, not because of experience, and by appealing to the better angels of their nature, if they have any.
Shabana Mahmood's trial by fire. Can she truly upend tradition in the Home Office? Hey everyone, welcome back to UK Connors. I'm glad you're here. Before we begin, if you haven't already, hit subscribe and ring the bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next, especially if you care about the future of British politics. Right, let's get into it. Shabana Mahmood steps into Number 10's grand stage as Home Secretary at a moment when tradition and turbulence are intertwined, each tugging at the very fabric of what the job has always been. She inherits crises that have dogged the Home Office for years: small boats crossing the Channel, human trafficking, unrelenting critiques over crime, courtroom controversies over sentencing, the shadow of the European Convention on Human Rights, and an increasingly fractious public hungry for solutions. But more than that, she inherits history, the expectations, the stereotypes, the unspoken rules. And already, she's shown signs she intends to bend them, if not break them entirely. From her father's shop in Small Heath, Birmingham, where a cricket bat was kept behind the counter not out of love for sport so much as for deterrence, Mahmood's early life was steeped in the sharp awareness that law, order, community safety are not abstract concepts. They are lived, breathed, urgent. When your childhood includes waking to the possibility of theft, defending what's yours, those are lessons that don't leave you. They make you ask difficult questions early. They build instincts. So when she praises Margaret Thatcher, yes, Margaret Thatcher, Mahmood isn't just name-dropping a hero to curry favor. She's staking a claim. Political barriers can, and must, be broken. The first Muslim woman to hold one of the highest offices in British politics. And she says it openly, unafraid of the hisses or gasps such associations bring. She embraces Blue Labour's faith, flag, and family values rhetoric. She doesn't shy from conservative elements of social order. Think about how bold that is in a Labour Party that has long tried to finesse those ideas without conceding too much to them, worried about being labelled anything less than progressive. And yet, boldness alone isn't enough. The landscape she steps into is littered with traps. Every predecessor has had to wrestle with the same problems: boats, borders, courts. None have emerged without scars. She'll surely get hers. Let's start with small boat crossings. The Channel has become the ultimate litmus test for Home Secretaries. It's not just a logistical nightmare, it's a political toxin. Voters demanding strong border control, critics warning of human rights abuses, NGOs challenging conditions. Mahmood must thread a needle. She has already agreed to negotiate with Germany and others in the Five Eyes Alliance to target human traffickers more effectively. Good. But promises, talk, treaties they must translate into action. She'll be judged by what actually happens at the border, by whether chaos recedes or merely shifts shape. Then there's community safety and crime ***. Her family experience in Small Heath gave her skin in this game. When crime feels uncontrolled, trust in institutions erodes. Mahmood knows that. In public speeches, she's spoken plainly about that feeling of being unsafe in your own streets. But the critics will ask, what plans? What resources? What measurable decline in crime? The rhetoric of toughness can only take you so far. Delivering change requires navigating budgets, police culture, judicial systems, all under scrutiny. Look at justice, sentencing, and reform ***. She has already signaled dissatisfaction with certain sentencing guidelines, specifically proposals that judges should take the offender's history so strongly into account. She has also been given some power to reject regulations before publication. That's rare and powerful. Her legal training and time at Oxford give her a sharper toolkit here. She understands that law is not just philosophy, it is procedure, precedent, consequence. Yet even knowing this, she faces tension, traditional labor values of rehabilitation versus public demand for deterrence and retributive justice. The balance she strikes, or fails to strike, here will define her legacy. And then, of course, the raging topic of immigration and asylum. Here, the political stakes are enormous. She's made it clear, supporting Palestine and supporting a prohibited group are not the same thing. Fine, but the broader question, how does she treat those seeking asylum? How does she deal with those who break immigration laws? The public mood has shifted. Many feel laws are flouted, borders are porous, and the sense of fairness is under strain. Mahmood has made statements about the affront she feels when people violate immigration law yet are nevertheless afforded protection she believes her own family merited. That's incendiary for some, inspiring for others. It tells you everything about where she might lean, but it also riskily stokes division. She must be both firm and fair. The optics will matter as much as the policies. Let me be clear, she is more outspoken than Yvette Cooper was in the same role. Cooper was diligent, influential, but cautious. Mahmood seems willing to speak, unapologetically, about the things most ministers try to leave unspoken. Perhaps that is her greatest asset, and her biggest vulnerability. Once you begin to break tradition, once you start refusing the safety of consensus, there are enemies in every corner within your own party, across the aisle, in media, among civil servants who prefer the path well-trodden. The institutional resistance will be immense. The Home Office is risk-averse, and bureaucracies do not like being rushed. Policies must pass legal hurdles, often shaped by courts and human rights obligations. Here, her legal training is an advantage, but law can be a cage as much as a compass. Meanwhile, anti-Muslim racism already stalks her. Social media, press barbs they will try to spin her faith, her background, her outspokenness into liabilities. She has to take the hits, but also avoid letting them define her. And she must do so without losing the respect of colleagues who may quietly distrust a divergence from party or establishment expectations. Then there's perception. Labor's principles have always included fairness, equality, human rights. If Mahmood pushes too far into a hardline posture, she risks alienating voters for whom compassion matters, for whom welcoming the stranger is a moral, not just political, duty. But if she leans too softly, she'll be accused of weakness of repeating the mistakes of past ministers. So what is her advantage? Why might things be different this time? First, her credibility. The story of her childhood, of her father protecting his shop, of being raised in a community where safety was never a guarantee, gives her not just authenticity but a narrative. It resonates with voters tired of platitudes. It makes her critique of uncontrolled crime not academic, but visceral. It makes her respect for law and tradition seem earned. And when she speaks of faith, flag, family, it doesn't sound like cheap populism. It sounds like lived experience. Second, her political maturity. She's been Labor's campaign coordinator. She's negotiated difficult issues. She's had to balance party demands with public expectations before. She has already diffused crises, helped win key by-elections. She knows how to read the room, when to push and when to pause. That kind of strategic sense is rare in someone newly appointed to a major role. It means she might get ahead of problems, rather than constantly chasing them. Third, her legal expertise as the government examines how the European Convention on Human Rights is applied, especially around deprivation of liberty, deportation, foreign criminals. She has the schooling and experience to understand both how far the law allows one to push and where pushing could lead to judicial backlash. That dual awareness could help her build policies that are forceful but sustainable, which courts will uphold. And fourth, the moment is ripe. Public trust in the Home Office is low. Voters are frustrated. There is a yearning among many for a government that seems serious about border control, law, and order, but also that isn't simply reactionary. If Mahmood can convincingly argue that she is neither a throwback nor an opportunist, but a reformer with backbone, then she might win something that previous Home Secretaries only occasionally glimpse, both respect and results. However, and you know there's always a however, no reform worth its salt comes without sacrifice. She will have to make decisions that will draw howl from multiple quarters. Will she tolerate judicial rulings she disagrees with? Will she resist pressure from NGOs or human rights bodies or international courts? Will she maintain Labor's commitment to justice and fairness even when the political winds scream for retribution? Will she insist that ministers abide by law, even when law seems to retard what the public demands? And will she stay true to values like equality, non-discrimination, inclusion when she is personally attacked for being Muslim, for speaking up, for naming uncomfortable truths? Already, anti-Muslim racism has surfaced. Some social media accounts smear her loyalty. Others mischaracterize her policies. Some want her to prove she is one of us, a ridiculous demand, but one she cannot ignore because the media will use that pressure to cast doubt on her every move. She must carry the burden of representation, not just for herself, but for many who feel politically invisible. That is heavy and often unseen from the outside. Let's talk about prescribed groups and political courage. The Home Office decision to designate Palestine Action as a prescribed group or not is more than bureaucratic. It's symbolic. Mahmood is under pressure. Some want strong action, others want a suppression of dissent. Her earlier statement, supporting Palestine and supporting a prohibited terrorist group are not the same thing, shows she is mindful of nuance. But nuance is dangerous. It is where most political skirmishes happen. The hardline wing will accuse her of softness. The progressive wing will accuse her of betrayal. She'll need clarity, consistency, legal precision. This isn't just policy. It is identity, values, press narratives, public perception all wrapped into one. And then, small boats again. Because unless she can reduce arrivals and show the public that something is working, everything else is overshadowed. Ministers will meet with Five Eyes allies to target traffickers. That's necessary but not sufficient. She must change the incentives. What draws people here illegally? What stops them domestically and abroad? Will she tighten asylum laws? Will she increase removals? Will she build safe routes? All those steps come with moral, legal, political cost. If things worsen, if more deaths happen in the Channel, if press images of stranded migrants or overwhelmed boats reach the front pages, Mahmood will be blamed. The Home Office, by tradition, is an easy target. She must be preemptive, not reactive. Let me circle back to the contrast with Yvette Cooper. Cooper was steady, reliable, and effective within the constraints she was given. Mahmood is show rather than hide. Cooper insisted on the rule of law, yes, but rarely courted headlines that risked internal party backlash. Mahmood seems ready to speak in moments of moral clarity, even when they sting. That capacity to provoke, to force conversation, could be exactly what Labour needs to restore trust among voters disillusioned with endless compromise. But it's a double-edged sword. With every bold pronouncement comes scrutiny. With every visible commitment comes expectation. If she fails to deliver, people will say, more rhetoric, little action. Let's bring in *** internal party dynamics ***. 10. Downing Street will be watching. Starmer's government wants credibility on immigration, on security, on justice. They cannot appear feckless. They need to show voters that Labour isn't just talk. Mahmood's role is central to that message. Accordingly, Number 10 is banking on her to articulate that Labour can be tough but fair, compassionate yet decisive. That places her under a pressure cooker. Misstep and she's accused of hardening Labour into something fans don't like, or else mollifying critics but allowing rough edges to grow. Simultaneously, external opposition, reform, right-leaning media, conservative hardliners are watching for any sign of weakness. They want her to fail, or to at least be painted as failing. They'll pounce on inconsistencies, contradictions, delays. Because politics is ruthless, you either control the narrative or you become its victim. And let's address the hardest thing of all, balancing principle with pragmatism. Realpolitik isn't glamorous. It demands compromise, sometimes of frustrating kinds. It asks you to postpone absolute truth for partial progress. Mahmood's background suggests she understands that. But her instincts, particularly when something feels unjust, may strain the necessity of compromise. The question is, how much is she willing to bend before she risks being seen as just another insider? Her legal background will be tested at mouthing promise, but courts will challenge removal orders, human rights obligations, asylum processes. Immigration law is complex. Definitions matter. The difference between being declared a terrorist organization and being a legitimate protest group is a matter of minor legal definitions, but huge political fallout. Mahmood must choose advisors who are sharp, lawyers who anticipate challenges, civil servants who can translate policy into enforceable, lawful frameworks. She must monitor unintended consequences. Will stricter asylum law expose Britain to international legal challenge? Will harsh sentencing proposals feed unfairness? Will an aggressive approach to deportation alienate communities already feeling vulnerable? Yes, she will have to take risks. But to command respect, she must also accept responsibility. When things go wrong, as they surely will, at least sometimes she cannot deflect. Her voice must not shrink. She must own both the wins and the failures. Because consistent ownership builds trust more than perfect performance, but only if you are seen trying, adapting, being honest. People smell insincerity. They resent spin. Authenticity, even when blunt, wins more loyalty in the long run. So, can she do it? Can Shabana Mahmood succeed where others have faltered? I believe she has the tools, integrity, experience, legal acumen, personal story. I believe she has a character for disruption. But the test will be not whether she breaks tradition that's already happening, but whether she forges something better in its place. A Home Secretary who can secure the border, yes, one who also protects rights, one who listens without becoming paralyzed by fear of criticism, one who acts without appearing distant, one who upholds a party's core ideals without looking like she's playing to the gallery. If she begins to show crime falling, removals happening lawfully but swiftly, public confidence rising rather than sinking, and that her firmness does not erode fairness, then history may regard her tenure not simply as one of many, but as a turning point. But make no mistake, for every step forward, there are blows waiting. The media will probe, social media will smear, MPs will betray, legal challenges will hammer. It's a long, punishing road. Yet this is precisely what public office demands: courage, consistency, conviction. So here's the bottom line. Shabana Mahmood has stepped into perhaps the toughest role in government, bar maybe the prime minister's, not just because of policy, but because of identity, expectation, and history all combined. She can succeed, but only if her principles hold up under pressure, if her words become law, and if her willingness to break tradition isn't merely symbolic but transformational. If she can do that, the country might look back and say this was when things changed. If you want to see how this all plays out, how she handles her first major test, what she does after making promises, and whether the politics match the rhetoric she'll want to stick around. So please, subscribe to UK Connors if you haven't already, and share this video so the conversation gets louder. Because the future of our politics depends on more people watching, thinking, demanding more. Thanks for being here.